You think you know your child? You think the boy you raised, the one you sacrificed everything for, would never look you in the eye and tell you that your love means nothing without your bank account? My son demanded $200,000 for a business idea he couldn't even explain properly. When I said no, he told me I was the reason for every failure in his life, that I never believed in him, that a real mother would give everything. I'm Rebecca. I'm 53 years old. And I just learned that to my son. I was never a mother. I was a wallet. Before this happened, I thought I had done everything right. I worked 2 jobs when his father left. I paid for his college without loans. I gave him a car when he graduated. I never asked for payback. I never held it over his head. I just wanted him to have opportunities I never had. My son Daniel is 29. Smart, charismatic, always has big ideas, but he's never finished anything. Started 3 different businesses in 5 years. All of them failed within months. Each time I helped him. Not with huge amounts, but enough. A few thousand here and there. Money I could barely afford. I never said no before. Maybe that was my mistake. 3 months ago, Daniel called me. Not a casual call. He scheduled it. He said he needed to discuss something important with me. Something that would change both our lives. I thought maybe he was getting married or moving for a job. Something normal. He showed up at my house with a laptop and a presentation. Actual slides. He sat me down at my kitchen table like I was an investor, not his mother. His idea was something about cryptocurrency and NFTs. He used words I didn't understand. Blockchain, decentralized platforms. Web3. He talked for 40 minutes straight. I tried to follow. I really did. Then he got to the ask. $200,000. I just stared at him. That's more money than I've ever had at one time in my entire life. I have maybe $30,000 in savings. That took me 10 years to build. I told him I didn't have that kind of money. He didn't even blink. He said I could take out a loan against my house, that banks would give me a home equity line of credit easily, that it was a sure thing, that I'd make it all back in 6 months. A sure thing. I asked him if he had a business plan, market research, partners, anything concrete. He got defensive immediately, said I was being negative, that I always doubted him, that this was different from his other ventures. I asked how. He couldn't answer. He just kept saying I had to trust him, that this was his big break, that he needed someone to believe in him. I said I believed in him, but I couldn't risk my home. That's when everything changed. His face went cold. He closed his laptop slowly. He looked at me like I was a stranger. He said, "You know what, Mom? I should have known. You've never really supported me. You say you love me, but when it actually matters, you're not there." I felt like I'd been slapped. I reminded him of everything I'd done, the sacrifices, the late nights working, the money I'd already given him over the years. He said that was the past. That this was about my faith in his future. That if I really loved him, I would find a way. Other mothers mortgaged their homes for their kids. Other mothers made sacrifices. I told him I had sacrificed. My entire adult life had been sacrificed. He stood up. He said I was selfish. That I was comfortable in my little house with my little life, and I didn't want him to succeed because it would make me feel like a failure. I couldn't even respond. The cruelty of it took my breath away. He left. He didn't say goodbye. For 2 weeks, he didn't call, didn't text, nothing. Then his girlfriend reached out. She was sweet about it at first. She said Daniel was really hurt. That he just needed to know I supported him. That maybe I could reconsider. I told her the same thing I told him. I didn't have that money, okay? And even if I did, I wouldn't risk my home on something so uncertain. She changed her tone immediately. She said I was holding Daniel back, that he'd been talking to therapists about his childhood and realizing how much damage I'd done by being overprotective and controlling. Overprotective, controlling. I raised him alone. I gave him everything. And now I was being rewritten as the villain in his story. I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about the money. This was about control, about manipulation. about reframing my entire existence as a mother into something ugly so he could justify his demands. I decided right then that I was done defending myself. I didn't respond to his girlfriend. I didn't call him. I didn't chase him. I just waited. A month passed. Then one day, he showed up at my door. He looked terrible, exhausted, angry. He said we needed to talk. I let him in. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't hug him. I just sat down and waited. He told me he'd found investors, that he didn't need me anymore, that he was moving forward without my help. I said that was great. He seemed thrown by that, like he expected me to beg for details or apologize. Then he said he needed to say something, that he'd been holding back for years, but he couldn't anymore. He told me I was a mediocre mother, that I did the bare minimum and expected praise for it, that plenty of single mothers worked hard and I wasn't special. That the real reason Dad left was probably because I was cold and difficult. Every word was designed to hurt. I sat there. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at him. Really looked at him. And I saw a stranger, a man who could say those things to the woman who raised him, who could weaponize my divorce, my struggles, my love. I said very quietly, "You need to leave." He said we weren't done talking. I stood up. I walked to the door and opened it. I said, "Yes, we are. You've said what you came to say. Now leave." He tried to argue, said I was proving his point, that I couldn't handle difficult conversations. I didn't engage. I just stood there holding the door. He finally left. He slammed his car door. He peeled out of my driveway. I closed the door. I locked it. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. I didn't hear from him for 6 weeks. Then I got a text, just one line. The investors fell through. I need $10,000 to keep going. Not an apology. Not an acknowledgement of what he'd said. Just a demand. I blocked his number. 2 days later, his girlfriend called from her phone. She was crying. She said Daniel was devastated, that he was depressed, that he needed his mother. I told her that the son I raised would never speak to me the way Daniel did, that I loved that boy with everything I had. But the man who showed up at my house demanding money and hurling insults, I didn't know him. And I wouldn't bankroll his cruelty. She started to argue. I hung up. I blocked her too. I thought that would be the end of it. Then my sister called. She'd had lunch with Daniel. He'd told her his version of events. How I refused to help him. How I crushed his dreams. How I was bitter and jealous of his ambition. My sister, thankfully, knows me. She told him he was out of line, that I'd given him more than enough over the years, that he needed to grow up. He apparently left in the middle of lunch. Over the next month, I heard through family that Daniel's venture completely collapsed. No investors, no partners. Just another failed idea. I felt sad about that. Not because I should have given him money, but because he'd burned every bridge for something that was never real. Then, 3 months after our last conversation, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Daniel, handwritten. He said he was sorry, that he'd been under a lot of pressure, that he said things he didn't mean. But then, in the next paragraph, he said he still thought I should have helped him, that a loan would have been reasonable, that my refusal showed a lack of faith, so it wasn't really an apology. It was another manipulation, another attempt to make me the problem. I didn't respond. A few weeks later, I ran into his girlfriend at the grocery store. She was alone. She looked embarrassed. She said Daniel had been talking about me a lot, that he missed me. I said, if he misses me, he has my address. She nodded. She said she didn't know it had gotten so bad between us. I said, it got bad when he decided my love was conditional on my bank account. She didn't have an answer for that. I haven't heard from Daniel in 2 months now. Maybe I never will again. And I've had to make peace with that. I spent weeks questioning myself, wondering if I was too harsh, if I should have found a way to help him, if I failed him somehow. But then I remember his words, the coldness in his eyes, the calculated cruelty. And I know I made the right choice, because loving someone doesn't mean destroying yourself to prove it. I gave Daniel everything I had to give for 29 years. I worked myself to exhaustion. I went without so he wouldn't have to. But I won't set myself on fire to keep him warm. I won't mortgage my home, my security, my future for a fantasy. And I won't accept being emotionally blackmailed by my own child. If that makes me a bad mother in his eyes, then so be it. I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know the love I gave him was real and unconditional. But unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional funding. It doesn't mean accepting abuse. Doesn't mean erasing my own worth to validate his ego. I sleep well at night now. Better than I have in months. Okay, because I'm not waiting for the next demand, the next insult, the next manipulation. I'm just living my life, quietly, peacefully. And if Daniel ever truly wants a relationship with me, not a transaction, not a bank, but a real relationship, he knows where to find me. But he'll have to come as my son, not as someone who sees me as a resource to be extracted. I'm done being used. I'm done being rewritten as the villain. I'm done sacrificing my peace for someone who measures my love in dollars. I'm just done, and that's okay. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in this situation? And do not forget to subscribe to Golden Years Diary for more stories like this.